There were so many ways that I could have started this review. Now that is one big pile of shit. Hollywood, it finds a way. You were so preoccupied with whether or not you should make another Jurassic Park that you didn't stop and think if you should. But here's the bare bones to it, everybody. I didn't think that this movie was that bad. Now, in saying that, don't worry, I am part of the 30% critics that did not give this film a positive review. But in saying that, this isn't the worst Jurassic Park. And there's plenty of stuff that I liked about it. There's plenty I'm gonna rip on too. Hey guys, how's it going today? Pragmatic Addict here. I'm so grateful to have you here. This is going to be my review of Jurassic World Dominion. So Jurassic World Dominion is said to be the final conclusion to the Jurassic Park franchise. It is the 6th and last Jurassic Park movie, and this is bringing back the old guns from the first 3 films. So right away, I'm gonna get into the nonsense here because, again, there is plenty that I did like about this film, but there's even more that just didn't work. And that is that pretty much immediately, the film gave me a fucking headache. Like, literally the first 3 scenes of this film set up for 3 different fucking storylines. And in saying that, as the film does go on, it does do a better job as it goes on of tying everything in together. But the tones and how they introduce all these different storylines and all these different characters as well just felt really just kind of lifeless. Which, with that being said, the general plot of the movie centers on how dinosaurs now, are in the world, and, how coexisting with humans, they're just not compatible. And so the film starts off with, a bunch of montages of, news reports and, interviews around the world. It goes, forward to show, Claire's character, trying to rescue some dinosaur from, a breeding facility. And then, Chris Pratt's character trying to rescue, this dinosaur. So it goes into, pretty much the general gist of, these, people, these dinosaur experts trying their best to save these abused dinosaurs from the environment that they're not compatible in with humans. And basically shit just gets so out of control that they have to recruit, the big guns, Alan Grant, Ian Malcolm, as well as Laura Dern's character. So that is the general gist of the film, yes, but again, the film, the way that it opens, it doesn't really have any real opener, any real setting, any real introduction. It is just all these characters and all these different storylines trying to fuse together to become one thing, and it's just not working. And expanding a little bit more on this topic of, the characters and the storylines just not working, there's so much filler toward, these characters and these storylines, and none of it really feels necessary, nor is any of it really that interesting. And especially with, the 6th film in a franchise, or 3rd part of the Jurassic World, trilogy, and with this, set to be, the epic conclusion to the whole franchise as a whole, with all this storylines and all these different characters coming in and out, because they try to do this thing where they touch on every single thing from the very last 5 films, when, yes, a lot of majority of it is, taking after Fallen Kingdom, which was, which most of you may not even fucking remember, but they try to center up more solely on that and try and build upon that, this whole futuristic kind of Jurassic Park thing. For example, this does feel like a very futuristic movie. They're bringing in all these old members, and, they're having these, shitty comedic moments of them, trying to, be on par with, the whole millennial bullshit going on, and, saying shit oh, blah, 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 slid into my DMs just for, comedic cringe effect, and really it just gets cringe. But going back real quick, with all these muddled storylines and characters that they already began with, it makes it really hard to not only keep up with the film, but sadly, a lot of the viewers will lose interest before this film even gets going, which I will say, the last hour or so of this film was fucking beautiful. It was a masterpiece. But before we get into that, yes, I'm still gonna keep touching on these characters because it was such a huge issue. The main characters that we're really excited to see, Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, Laura Dern, the way that they're introduced to this film, they're not brought in with any real rewarding light to them, and there's no real engagement to like their introductions as well. It doesn't really seem like they're actually brought in to a necessary degree, other than the fact that we as viewers know, like, well, yeah, like the world is like run by dinosaurs now. Shit's kind of fucked. Which, all that I've been talking about so far in this review, a lot of it could be excusable to a degree. You know, this is the final film in, like, what, a 6-film franchise. They want to be able to get everything, you know, in together, and they want to be able to focus on, you know, each individual character. And that's a very mixed bag. As far as, like, how the film opens and starts, at least for the first 2 acts or so, it is very complicated. It's a lot of going back and forth between characters, some that you won't even remember, some that are brand new, and, you know, going in between shifts. Like, the first couple acts of this film kind of feel like a Mission Impossible, like, kidnapper kind of, like, caper film, where the last act of the film, or like, last hour or so, feels like the most Jurassic Park that the franchise has been since Jurassic Park 1. So, in a sense, like, how it all builds and, like, is introduced is not done well at all, in my opinion. There are a lot of things that they focus on more that they should have focused on other stuff instead. There are a lot of characters that kind of get blindsided and kind of get forgotten about, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's right. This is a Jurassic Park movie, duh. And, you know, I will say this, as the film continues to go, as it gets going and, you know, goes on, it does get better as it goes on. It is one of those movies that, you know, get through, like, the bullshit, get through the setup, which there really is no setup, and I would say that, you know, a vast majority of this film feels completely just wasted. But if you know, get through that first act and you want to see Jurassic Park for what it is, the ending, and not even just the ending, the last act or so, last hour again, is very rewarding in that sense. And again, some of the, you know, criticisms I have could be excusable. You know, like, for example, I'm happy that this film didn't do the trend of, like, the whole legendary, like, old, you know, people coming back. They didn't just save them for the last act. They're actually, for the most part, like, a pretty consistent, you know, aspect of the film, you know, the original characters and everything. And while, yes, in the last act, it is really the Jurassic Park menace and terror that we want, there are tons of callbacks to the first film. It does get pretty suspenseful. It is just pure popcorn Jurassic Park fun that we will, you know, that we were paying the ticket for. You know, you do get that, but, and, you know, in saying that, that is the most action that you see out of these characters, but they were always doing something throughout the movie the second that they got in, you know, from you know, their introductions. And again, one thing I will say is that, yes, there's a lot of storylines that they, you know, center on. There's a lot of different kind of tone shifts, and, like, it feels like it's a few different movies at a time. There's a lot of different characters that go in and out. But in saying that, I was surprised that, you know, by the end of it, yeah, when this film started out, I was really lost, and a majority of it I was pretty confused and kind of, you know, unrewarded. But by the end of it, it did do pretty well with actually fusing all that together. And, like, just with this, you know, specific, like, point in the franchise, this specific movie, you know, you do get some lore and history and a lot of detail and action about these, you know, dinosaurs adapting, you know, in the real world and coexisting with humans. You get, you know, I think to a fair degree, you know, that's in there. And they do, I think, you know, for the most part, you know, pretty okay with it. And they do go to interesting lengths with that being said. The only thing is that all of the stuff surrounding that is way more, like, you know, touched up on and way more to the center that feels just completely wasted. You know, and it's like, yeah, you know, like what it comes down to is that these dinosaurs are now, you know, free to do whatever they want. They're free to roam, and them with, you know, coexisting with humans, it's getting out of control. And, you know, from where the franchise started with just this park to now this, it's a big change, and it has evolved up to that point. And what better to do with it than, yes, bring back the legends, but just do that. This film felt so, like it felt like Jurassic Park 3000. It was fucking crazy. Like, they didn't need to do all that they did. I felt like this movie could have been a solid, like, 100 minutes, but they were like, well, that's not epic finale runtime. No, we have to do, like, there's 5 more films before this that were the same length as this one. we gotta do that. And it's like, no, you don't. Just give people one last Jurassic Park movie and give them a Jurassic Park movie. Though, one thing I will say as well, which this is like both a criticism and like something I had fun with, it probably won't sound that great to you viewers, but the dinosaurs in here were so fucking comedic. Like, I feel like instead of bringing like terror and suspense, they brought like comedy. Like, they're like riding around like fucking unicycles with like little horns, and they're like fucking street performers. Like, it was basically like they hired dinosaurs that were from that fucking culture. Also, the practical effects, especially in like the first act of this film or so, let's just say, yeah, it gets better as it goes on. It gets better as it goes on. But a lot of the time, you know, when like the dinosaurs are on screen, it is more comedic than anything until like actually shit hits the fan and they're like, wow, we can actually be a Jurassic Park movie now. And I will say this as well. Once the film wraps up, it does leave you with a pretty sweet feeling, I think. Especially because the last act or so, not only is it Jurassic Park, but it is, again, probably the most Jurassic Park that we have felt since Jurassic Park. And yes, you know, that is because there's a lot of, you know, references and homages. You know, there's things from like the, you know, car getting stuck in the tree to like Laura Dern's character like running through like the little like vent area with like the raptors, like the same kind of like environment and everything, to, you know, Malcolm's character with like the fire. There's a lot of references, more than I'm even explaining. I'm not going to spoil it all, but what I'm saying is that the last act, it not only feels like Jurassic Park, but it is pure Jurassic Park pleasure for the fans. And with that being said, how the film actually wraps up, I think, does a pretty solid job. It's just, the whole film as a whole, it is pretty cheesy, and vast majority of it feels really unnecessary and just not interesting. And where it feels like they kind of struggled with what they actually wanted the film to be, so they're like, well, let's get all these storylines from all these movies with all these characters and just put it in a blender and make scrambled Jurassic World. And yeah, that obviously just wasn't the best decision for the movie as a whole. Overall, guys, I think I'm feeling a solid maybe 4 out of 10 for this one. Again, I did not think that this was the worst in the franchise. I do think that Fallen Kingdom is by far the worst, without a doubt. But in saying that, this is a follow-up to Fallen Kingdom, and from where the Jurassic Park franchise has gone from the first film to that one to now this one, you do feel that. So, what it comes down to is, if this is the last Jurassic Park film, I'm okay with that. Don't go any further. Do not fuck this one up, because this wasn't the worst in the franchise. But it's time to stop. So guys, that is going to do it for my Jurassic World Dominion review. My next review, I'm really excited about this one, guys, is going to be in 4 days on the 15th. I am going to an early advanced screening of The Black Phone. So I'm really excited to talk about that one with you guys, and I hope that you guys really enjoyed this video. I hope that you guys got some sort of excitement and some enjoyment out of the new Jurassic Park movie. But let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the video as well as the movie. It's great to see you guys again. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.